See you, Mark.
It's a show about someone with a tragic past who is nevertheless positive and almost joyful in his search for meaning in his life.
It was a procedural show that was slightly having a wink at itself. There's a little bit of an inside joke at procedural shows.
There are definitely deeper themes where, especially with Simon's character.
On a pretentious level, it's a search for faith and a search for meaning and a search for redemption and revenge.
We've never discussed this because I thought it went without saying, but when I catch Red John, I'm going to cut him open and watch him die slowly, like he did with my wife and child. Bruno's script was tightly written, but it allowed room for interpretation of the character.
Were you clairvoyant or something, Gizmo? You got psychic powers?
No powers. There was great situations and circumstances and an interesting backstory that could be broadened and expanded and pulled into a heavier, weightier situation. Had him once. I mean, I pretended I had him, obviously. No such thing as psychic powers.
So what is it you do exactly?
The whole series is essentially triggered by this serial killer, Red John, who killed Patrick Jane's family.
Your wife, Red John, painted her toenails. Yes, painted them with her own blood. Police didn't make that public, did they?
I think finding Red John is this drive that keeps him going and keeps him coming back to work for our team.
When we catch Red John, we are going to take him into custody and he's going to be tried in a court of law.
Not if I'm still breathing.
And that's the kind of dark anchor of the show. But the show itself is not dark. The show itself, on the contrary, is all about coming out of darkness and being able to deal with darkness in a light way. It's an illuminating show in that sense.
Love is crazy, I guess.
No, it isn't. You should seek psychiatric help. But ultimately, it's about, you know, how we interact with each other, and that's sort of what lends to its, I think, partly to its appeal.
What I liked about this was that the blend of the familiar and the different. I think people really do enjoy watching a formula that they're familiar with.
Well, we have two witnesses who saw a silver sedan deliberately chase her down. We're getting paint off the trash cans right now. Hopefully we'll get a make and model. We've also got a partial plate.
Sounds like you're on top of it.
Sure, but I don't mind getting your back up.
We're not back up, we're lead.
Yes, ma'am.
So the procedural form fits into that nicely, but it subverts it enough to give it a human side, and that's really where I felt the life and the legs of the show were.
What was his previous employment?
He was a musician, jazz guitarist.
Yes. How did you know that?
I looked at his fingers, guitarist fingers.
Yes?
He was playing a gig at one of these ghastly events you have to go to, and you struck up a conversation. You love jazz, so you could talk with him easily.
But I'm sorry, Miss Kate, he's just showing off.
I started thinking about the elements of this show based on a couple of things, really. First thing, driving around LA, where I live, on every block, in every part of the city, you'll see a storefront with a psychic in it, or a fortune teller, or some variation on that particular trade. And it just seemed to me this is a huge underground world that clearly a lot of people are making a lot of money from. A lot of people are going to these people for solace and advice and counsel.
Do you charge for your services?
Yes.
How much did you charge Rosemary?
$500 per hour.
How many hours a week?
5 to 6.
Oh, $3,000 a week. Nice.
Rosemary was a troubled soul.
They know they're doing a trick.
Don't try to cold read me.
I wouldn't know how.
We both know that's a lie.
But on the other hand, they're doing something good. They're giving people consolation and some sense of closure and redemption.
The veil will be drawn back and Rosemary will come to us as long as we believe.
And that just seemed like an interesting, morally ambivalent situation to be in, and it's a great character for a hero.
Have you spoken to Rosemary yet?
Yes, I have.
Did she happen to mention who killed her?
No.
So it starts out with a person who's essentially a charlatan. How do you turn a charlatan into a hero?
He says, I'm sorry for all the pain I caused you and your mother. They're tears of joy.
Something has to happen that makes him see the error of his ways.
Dear Mr. Jane, I do not like to be slandered in the media, especially by a dirty, money-grubbing fraud. I think the character is anchored, or is sort of keeled by somewhat of a tragic story. And
In this case, the death of his family.
so I felt that the interesting thing about tragedy is the contrast of how people live with it. I'm sorry about your mom.
Me too. I just want her back.
She can't come back, you know that, don't you? And I think great humor comes out of great tragedy.
It's his commitment to dealing with the world with grace and lightness when the circumstances that he's been through would entitle him to be bitter and twisted and sad.
You any good with this, son?
I'm okay.
What's
Well,
the
it's
Charlie
what-
Chaplin song that he wrote? Smile.
Smile and the world smiles with you.
Smile though your heart is breaking.
I got you!
Please, mercy, mercy.
The way he goes about it varies and shifts. He's not necessarily an angry man that wants revenge, although he's deeply pained and deeply troubled.
And I think he bears the burden in his private moments, but doesn't let anybody else see what he's really feeling or thinking.
You protect your core self very fiercely. What do you think is the reason for that?
And he has a lightness and a brevity about him that can be deceptive. You know, this is exactly how I imagine it would be. You gonna ask me about my mother?
People associate beyond the grave with a certain amount of grim seriousness, because it's a serious thing, death. But the whole kind of priestly gravitas is just a show. And so a character like Patrick Jane, who can treat death with the disdain that it deserves, is a very attractive character, I think.
It was very important for me to have that balance, and that was a big part of forming the character. I have a question. It's always bothered me. Why do they call it football? People don't really use their feet much, do they?
Are you trying to be rude or disrespectful or what?
Could I use your bathroom, please?
Down the hall to your left.
What's his problem?
Sorry about that.
And finding somebody who embodied all the qualities of that character and could sort of shoulder the weight of the show, I thought was really difficult.
The trick with heroic leads like Patrick is that you need to show just enough to create that vision of a real person and then leave it at that, because you need the mystery.
The more vague you are about the depth and the darkness of the character, the more longevity the character has.
It's about his journey of coming out of this very painful situation and how the CBI sort of makes him feel like he has a family again.
Don't bother, I know. I feel the same way. Nothing to be done.
So now when he really needs our help, we're letting him down.
I want to help him just as much as you do. Our orders state that we must stay away from this case.
I don't care what our orders say. It's not right.
We closed cases before he came. We'll close cases after he's gone.
The cases are not the point. It's not that we need him. He needs us.
Yeah, he needs us on a fool's errand. Renfrew's a con man. He doesn't know anything about Red John.
Suppose we found a connection.
And until he resolves that issue, it's very hard for him to be close to other people.
You looked kind of lonely. My friend and I were wondering if you'd like to join us.
Hi. I'm sorry, I'm married.
Well, because that involves a certain degree of forgetting and relinquishing the past, and he can't do that until he's done what he needs to do.
They do think Jane is darker than we suspect. But he hides it well.
I have a daughter, be about your age if I hadn't caused her death.
Yeah.
Out of arrogance, stupidity. I made an evil man very angry, and he killed them to teach me a lesson.
And I think that's part of the journey of Jane. He hides it because he has to.
Tell me the truth.
Truth. Darth Vader? Luke's father.